Another dirty, disgusting word by the name of digital agency. We've heard a lot of them. We've talked to a lot of them. How do you trust any of them?
Find what you're good at. Work out what works for your marketing of your business or for your business development.
This is an interesting podcast about the reflection on leadership.
As business people, we get stuck in the detail and forget the key stuff that leads to, say, new business.
And how to take responsibility, sharing a story of being in a moment of friendly fire.
Your call to me, right, something in those first 10 seconds said, I'll take this further, because normally it would be a no. It would be like, no, go away, I'm too busy, I'm focusing on client work and an overdue website or a campaign that needs to go live on Friday or whatever it might be. And so it's easy to say no and dismiss the call, but you said something in the first 10 seconds that went, we'll just take this a little bit further.
Still having to take responsibility as a leader and how you contributed to that. And how do you do the incremental things, the boring things, over and over in order to achieve the positive outcomes that you want in your life? So this is about consistency, leadership, and a digital agency owner. That sounds like a swell guy. All right, well, we'll just start. We have no idea where it's going to go, but we were talking about what actually makes content good. So I'm wondering what your opinion on that is. Do you think, what would you say, either in your personal experience, makes a podcast good, or consumption of content you like that works, where you have like an affinity with the person that creates it, or it's content that you might create? What do you think is good content?
Well, it depends what the target is and what you're after, I guess. And I guess that's what we were just talking about, was a particular focus, so that when you listen to that podcast, there's an expectation of what you're going to receive from that podcast.
It's a good point. Like Mr. Beast, I don't know if you know him, he's like this massive creator that appeals to a certain demographic, and you could argue his valuation of his business is $1 billion, and it transcends languages as well. So
is that the target, Ryan?
Yeah, to get $1 billion. That's my dream. Good. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about money. It's a bit of a problem. I actually was a hippie living in a tent for a while, not working for years at a time, and had to shed that to pursue my capitalistic dream. So it's a bit of a war there.
Oh, so you do have a money dream?
I'm forcing myself to. I think money is a vehicle to achieve what you want in life.
Yeah.
Like, my drive is to give every person the opportunity to live a fulfilling life, and that's going to require a lot of money to reach a lot of people. So I need money.
But that is like general business. I mean, the reward is the money, and certainly I'm after money. But if the target has to be, I want to satisfy my clients' needs, and that will result in money. So it's like the North Star metric, isn't it?
I don't know the North Star metric. What's that?
Well, a North Star metric is the it's like, well, an example is, say, Uber. Their target or their North Star metric is rides, the number of rides they sell, and that will turn into dollars in revenue, of course. But their marketing effort is behind how many rides they're going to generate. So everything that we do in marketing is aimed at that North Star metric, and the other results will flow. So for a client, I can't control necessarily their profit or their revenue and those financials that they look after, but I can control the number of leads they receive from the website or the number of traffic that the website gets. So that's our North Star metric with that particular client. So, you're talking about your North Star metric as far as your dollar aspirations go. It might be the amount of audience that you get for your podcasts. So that's your focus, that's your aim, engaging people through podcasts, and hopefully that leads to a revenue stream. But you're not targeting the dollars per se, you're targeting the audience, the number of impressions that you receive for your podcasts.
It's a good point. It sounds like I needed a North Star, just sort of making.
Well, so the North Star is whatever I do, how am I getting closer to that North Star metric? So if it's in my world, if it's a better website that attracts more traffic, that's going to lead to more e-commerce sales or more leads for a B2B business, which will eventually lead to revenue for my client. But our North Star metric in that particular case is, say, traffic to the website.
Yeah, okay, it makes sense. Yeah, I guess.
It's like you tell me what the magic figure is that you have to reach with a YouTube audience to start generating a good income, a good revenue stream from advertising.
Yeah, well,
is it 1 million users? Is it 100,000 users?
Yeah, well, in terms of the specifics, I'm not too sure, because my focus has always been create the content that will lead to people becoming clients, and that's where I monetize it instead of actually making it from the payment from the platforms. Like Facebook brought in this new thing where you can make money from Reels. I didn't even apply. Like it's you've qualified. You can apply to get money from Facebook Reels. I was like, which.
So it's a good focus. You're focusing on good quality content, but then the next step is making sure that people actually hear that content. There's no point having a brilliant website if no one visits.
Yeah.
So perhaps your North Star metric is the quantity of audience that are subscribing or listening in. And to get there, you have to create great content, but then also communicate through other mediums that you actually exist. Otherwise, they'll never turn up.
Yeah, that's valid. Yeah, I was thinking probably the North Star I'd use is engagements in terms of viewership, and then their experience in the comments. So if they're like, this made me really rethink and approach life in a different way, or fuck, that really resonates with me, I don't feel like I'm alone or whatever. That if my objective is to help people live fulfilling lives, I'm sort of in a pause now because I'm building the marketing company to learn how to reach more people and then create a scalable offering to help people live fulfilling lives. So the metric at the moment is, more clients, more revenue for the marketing side of things, the content side. So it's interesting. But anyways, I'm learning. That's sort of a good thing. Some random successful people are just talking on the podcasts, and I'm learning and making content for people. It's a win.
You must be learning a lot from the random people that you have on your podcast. Then,
yeah, it's insane. Yeah, and then the relationships as well, like over time, because it's a value exchange. I was watching. Do you know Alex Hormozi?
No.
He just. He basically he's really good at making profitable businesses, and he had made a funnel with ClickFunnels that made more money than any other person ever, and he earned more than all of a list of 10 of the biggest company CEOs' salaries at the age of 23. So he's very good at sales and acquisition, and then creating offers, irresistible offer. But he just brought up something about leads, and he was talking about, if you want to get leads, it's the quality of the thing that you give away for free, and then it's a matter of word of mouth. So you give this incredible thing away for free.
The point there is giving value, isn't it? So you can't get the email address, which is what I'm giving up, unless you give me some value to give you that email address.
Well, exactly. He does another level as well. Lead magnet, he doesn't just see as like an ebook or something. For example, he helped grow gyms, and he would do this free 6-week boot camp. So you give away the free actual execution or a certain component of what they need to achieve their dream outcome. Give that away for free, and then what he would do is sell them supplements that would soak up the acquisition cost, get them to put down a deposit. If they achieve their goal of losing 10 pounds, then they refund the deposit. or they can use it as a credit towards something else. So you're not just creating an ebook or a webinar. You're actually giving an aspect of your service away for free. That's a stage in the 6-stage process. So they're going to need the next thing solved. Do you ever think creatively about the free component, or do you ever look at a business and help them make their product or service better? Or
it's funny you say that because look, I read those same sorts of case studies using click magnets and then monetizing, at least paying for the cost, and then you're leading to your primary goal of selling an ongoing subscription or whatever it might be, or pulling on a client for regular servicing. But in reality, or at least for a lot of the clients we deal with, that they struggle to find something that resonates with their audience to give away for free.
Yeah.
It's so much of this stuff is available across the web that just signing up to it isn't necessarily a need. You can find the same content without having to sign up for something somewhere else. So it really depends on the industry and what you're giving up for free, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, that's an art. You're right, finding what do they want. He goes through the stages. He says, let's say I had a course on B2B sales. That'd be worth a little bit because there's a B2B in front of sales. It's a little specific. But what if it was B2B sales for B2B sales for marketing agencies that are in Auckland or in fucking Mission Bay or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was so specific to that unique problem, and you identified that problem in the language that they speak. And because you know your avatar so well, like he pulls all the information from 1,000 gyms. He found out which ones paid the most money and which are the best clients. Then found out that they were conservative from a political standpoint, that they did these certain actions and this sort of thing, and put all his messaging through his website, through the actual sales process that will attract that. It meant that you had a higher cost to acquire a lead, but you had a higher return of investment because you had the right person. What sort of a process you go through to identify like an appropriate avatar? Because finding your niche, or should you even find a niche? What do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if you're talking about our type of business, so I run a digital marketing agency, and if you're talking about my particular business and its methods to generate leads and new business for ourselves, we find the lead magnet approach, the digital approach, even though we're a digital agency, but the digital approach for our niche, which would be small to medium sized businesses in Auckland primarily, that they're hard to attract through a digital lead magnet. Our magnet usually comes by either referral or a cold call where we're offering literally I guess a free consultation, as in to sit with us for 30 minutes or an hour. You're going to get value out of that. You're going to leave thinking differently given the talk we have, and we're usually generating ideas and strategies out of that meeting and feeding it back to the customer. That's our free bit. And then hopefully that free bit leads to an engagement, a project with that company or an ongoing relationship with that company.
Makes sense.
So I guess our free thing isn't necessarily something you download. It's actually the expertise that we give within a face-to-face meeting.
I wonder if, like, let's say you had millions of dollars and an exponential amount of time you could hire whoever. What would be the most ridiculous thing you could give away for free? Like, what would be like something where you're like, yeah, I'll do your content for like 30 days and you don't pay us until you get a sale or something like that?
Well, look, we do exactly that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call our those offers ridiculous. Like,
yeah, true.
we do. Look, you don't pay us a cent until we achieve at least a 500% return on ad spend. So, if we're confident, if we see that the particular client has the right things stacked up, they've got a good product, they've got a good website, and they're wanting to to push traffic to the website to sell what they've got, and perhaps the first medium we're using is Google Ads, then we can promise, say, a 500% return on ad spend, and they don't pay a cent until we're actually achieving that. And invariably, there's a start zone where we're learning and improving and optimizing a particular campaign, but then it can quickly move and improve its performance so that it's achieving the 500% and we're getting paid. But so then that means there's no risk or low risk for the client, and they're going to be delighted when we achieve that, and we're going to be happy because we're going to get paid for it as well. But that's it's not a ridiculous offer, but that's an offer that resonates with clients because no money down, they're going to achieve their result before they have to fork out money. And another approach we have is initial concepts for free. So we take a brief and we provide back design concepts for, say, a website, free of charge. Now, we only do that when we are confident of that the client wants to move forward with us. But again, it helps them have the confidence in us and the trust in us that they're going to get the type of work that they want from us. So, I guess it's like a lot of if you're giving away something, we expect a return from it. So we're not going to give away too much without getting a return. But it gives that client the confidence in us, and it's much the same. If we go back to the digital download, it's much the same thing. You download the digital item. If it impresses you, you might take up something further with that provider.
Yeah, I always find that fascinating. This is a bit of a gentle push. Like a lot of the agencies, so I spam called a whole lot of agencies. You might have told you on the phone because I was
I got one.
Yeah?
I got a spam call from you.
Yeah, you did. You're one of them, mate. Yeah. No, I called a lot. It was partly because I was going to offer like a white label service to do content for their clients, and then I don't have to worry about blah, blah.
Yep. But
when I was calling them, a lot of them don't actually do marketing, which like for their business.
Right. Can
you explain why? Why? Like, so, hey, we're the gurus of marketing, but we use cold calling to outreach. Like, what's that about?
Oh, that's like a mechanic's car. Have you heard of that?
No, I've heard.
No. The mechanic usually has the worst car.
Okay.
The unprepared car.
Makes sense.
So in our case, we're not practicing what we preach. Then, if that's the case. But a lot of our work within our agency comes from referral, like. We regularly have a program of outreach, say Google Ads. We're posting blogs and news items on the likes of LinkedIn. We're outreaching with cold email and cold calls ourselves. But when it comes back to it, the most efficient way of getting new business is from referral or direct contact with potential clients.
Yeah,
we spend a lot of money and resource on those other exercises, but with our business in particular, we tend to get the best way to get business is through our referrals.
Do you think like Alex Samozio just talks about, like, if you make the best product, if you take the time to make an incredible product, then you don't really have to worry about marketing once you've got it going, because then word of mouth. So,
but word of mouth in a lot of industries, and perhaps the digital agency is similar. There's a lot of us out there. Yeah. Even if you just take the Auckland market, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of
called them all.
There's a lot of smaller based businesses. 4 to 8 people in the business. There are bigger players, of course, but there are a lot of us. So if we're to get business, say it's the website development project, it's the project that only happens once every 4 or 5 years. In my books, it should happen more often, But in a client's head, it happens every 4 or 5 years that they might look at a new website. To be in front of that website, in front of that client at the right time, with the right message, the right month, the right year. It's hard work. It's if we outreach to someone 8 months ago, they've probably forgotten about us already. So it's a difficult business to use some of the stuff that we preach, as you say. It's a difficult business to use that work with a B2B client.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it's harder. It's just like, is there anyone that's doing it? Like Gary Vaynerchuk does it, kinda. But he does like an obscene amount of content, and he has a very small thing that he appeals to, Fortune 500 companies. And then he also will like still do a cold outreach. You look at a Twitter person, that the account, and they're the main CMO of a major company, and then use the information from Twitter to do a personalized thing. Is there anyone that successfully does it? And if they are successfully doing it, why are they doing it well? And if they're not, it's just because it's competitive? Like everything's competitive to a degree,
Well, look, in our own case, we do exactly that. So if we find a warmish lead, then we're following it up with a personal phone call, and often that can lead to real business. On the way here, I was listening. We're talking about podcasts. I was listening to a podcast called 31 Minutes.
Yeah.
By a guy by the name of Matt Steinweed. Now he is a real estate expert. He's a very successful in real estate in Australia, and it might seem funny listening to a real estate podcast for a marketer in New Zealand, but I get a lot out of that raw sales approach that real estate agents have to take.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned. I could be listening to a podcast and thinking, this is just not me, it's not our industry, and all of a sudden a gem comes out. It might be about the follow-up, and it's just sold a property. We are door knocking on the 15 houses left and right of that property, and the 30 houses across the road. We're door knocking, face to face. The day after they get a postcard from me, and it might be, good to meet you, love your garden, keep in touch. A month later, it's something else. So that the lesson for me there is the follow-up. So we often don't practice that sort of stuff, or other stuff gets in the way. And sorry, I'm going around in circles here a little bit, but heading back to that particular podcast, it's a 31-minute podcast. Matt's focus is, or lessons are about applying a focus consistently in those bite-sized bits. It may not be 31 minutes, it might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, but you apply that focus on a daily basis to build your business. So in his instance, don't let work get in the way of doing 30 minutes of cold calls every day or every second day or whatever the strategy is. But so often, as business people, we get stuck in the detail and forget the key stuff that leads to, say, new business. So his lesson is focus on that 30 minutes a day, because over time it'll build up to a massive amount of investment into building your business.
Yeah, it's insane. It's a lesson, so for last year I've just procrastinated. So I started the business with a personal loan of 20 grand and then just changed the business model 10 different ways because I was afraid of failing. So I kept just, and I think about like even just now what I'm doing is just doing 10 cold calls, going for a walk, 10 cold calls, going for a walk, 10 cold calls, going for a walk.
Well, that's the 31-minute approach. Matt, if you visited his website, he's right into his health and fitness. It must be in a big way. He's got big biceps, big muscles. He really focuses on that. But his point about that is that if he wasn't doing, an hour in the day, a day in the gym, every day, then he wouldn't have those biceps. If he skipped a month, he'd lose the biceps. So it's not about getting the big win. It's about the incremental focus and consistency. So in your case, doing those, how many calls did you say you were doing?
10 and then a break, so 70 a day.
Well, that's great. I mean, so that's we started talking about at the beginning of this, that North Star metric. One of your metrics is those 10 calls.
Yeah.
And if you stop doing those 10 calls, your business would falter. I'm sure you could keep yourself busy during the day, but you've got to allocate that time to do those 10 calls and then the 10 calls following and so on and so on. Because over time, it amounts to 1,000 calls, a 5% uptake, and so on and so on. If you do the numbers, then you'll have your business. You'll have your $1 million podcasting business or your $5 million YouTube return.
Yeah, like you listen to these people and it doesn't make sense until you do it, and then you're like, shit. Like I've just been obsessing over one guy, Alex Hormozi, and it's just both of us are both referring these people that we've consumed quality information from, which is quite crazy. Like we're publicly doing it for nothing. And he just said like one channel, one avatar, 100 outreaches, which is either comments, DMs, 100 minutes of content, $100 spent on ad spend.
Right.
And just do those every day, and then within 2 months you don't have an acquisition problem, provided you have a good product.
So that's his formula, which is, and again, he's coming to say, just do it consistently. Here's his particular focus for developing new business, and now he's doing it consistently.
That's the king, eh? Because I talk a lot of like one-man bands and different businesses, and I see my own limitations in them and see where they're capped. I'm like, because if I look back, like the year, if I just picked one product, one avatar, and made 100 outreaches a day, where I gave something. So the outreach is now the podcast. It's just call, give value, a relationship builds, something happens from that. Something doesn't happen from that, we've got content. Maybe they realize they hate my guts and then we never talk again, whatever. But you just think that doing the boring things consistently.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, going for a run on the treadmill at the gym is boring. But if you don't do that on every time you go, then you're never going to get fit, or you're never going to stay healthy. Or so it's that back to those small things, and I think that's what actually the podcast I was just listening to from Matt was mentioned about the 10x type of approach. But it all starts with that discipline of doing those small things that you talk about.
It's insane, yeah. Because like even I use this example on podcasting. How many people do you think get to the 3rd episode in terms of a percentage? They start, they make 3 episodes, they give up. What would you guess? Your instincts?
It'd be tiny. It'd be less than 3%.
Yeah, pretty close. Essentially, only 10% keep going, and then on the 27th episode, only 10%. So only 1% of people get to the 27th episode.
So you've made it to 300 and something?
Yeah. Smoked them.
And so that's put you in the top, 1%?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Spotify sent this thing through as like, you're in the top 5% of podcasts in the world.
Great.
And it's that, exactly that. If you consistently do, and then I think the other component I'm learning about is leverage. Like you pick a particular priority that's the most important and focus on that, ignore everything else. And that's real art. It's like we had the same amount of time. What do we use as a lever to utilize that time in a more effective way? And a lot of my time is spent doing the wrong thing. And
Right.
the biggest talent is deciding on what the right thing is and then doing it no matter how I feel.
Right.
How do you determine as a business owner what's the right thing to do? Like, do you have a process?
Isn't that old adage about, 50% of my marketing's working, but I just don't know what 50%. It's that struggle to find. I guess that's look at in our business we use we've developed a growth marketing canvas. So it's the steps we put in place for any business, including our own, to move the needle. And so you're talking, the area you're talking about at the moment is in our analysis and reporting area. So it's really important to record or work out what works, so that you can optimize the rest of your system, if you like. So you're looking at stats or reports or whatever it might be to work out what actually works for you. And you must know that your phone calls work. You make this many phone calls, you get this many leads, you get this many appointments.
Yeah. And it's insane, the podcast conversion. So I'd done commissionary selling most of my life in management. So I used to train sales teams. And I've never had the opportunity to decide what I'm selling. I've always been told. And when you take the time to offer something compelling for free, the conversion's ridiculous. So like this podcast thing is like, I don't know the specifics, but let's say I've been calling for a few days and I've booked 14 appointments. And then obviously having things to do in between and around that. And they're coming in, looking at the brand, consuming your information, having a basic understanding of what you do. I need to do that better on the website. People don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't really know what I'm doing. But they're coming in, looking forward to being there, getting value out of it. So there's that reciprocation bias, but the conversion of them coming. So taking time to make a compelling free thing you give on the call. What are your lessons in cold calling? Because I love sales. So what's the guru say?
Well, for starters, I hate it.
You hate it, yeah.
For starters,
So you're human.
if I can give it to someone else, I will.
Yeah.
What I do find is if I have a warm lead, so it's not purely cold. If I have a warm lead, I won't let it go. So I believe that I believe in what we sell and what we do within our business.
So you're a closer, huh?
Yeah, I very, very much so. Like if we get a lead, we'll get the meeting. If we get the meeting, we'll get to propose. If we get to propose, there's a 60% chance that we'll get the job. We present and propose very well, and then we deliver well, of course. But it's getting to that stage. So yeah, back to your question about cold calling. I hate it. I don't like doing it. Preaching to myself here, that's one of the reasons that you come back to that 31 minutes podcast. It's something I should still be doing. It's like your cold calls. You have to do it. You may not want to do it, but you start it. You do it. So I certainly hate them, and I usually give them to what we call it. We employ an ISA, an internal sales agent. We prepare those scripts and so on for that agent to make those cold calls. When there's a sniff of a warm lead, then I'm on the phone or calling that particular person. But our ISA is using a script where we do offer, like we talked about, depending on what we're selling, but like the no fees until we achieve a 500% return on ad spend.
It's a good one. I've never heard it.
It is good. The issue is that the people we're calling are often getting a call a day from someone like us.
Yeah.
And they are the time poor, the sick of the call, and so unless you hook them in that first 10 seconds, then you'll miss the opportunity. So we have to offer something free. I'm still after the magic bullet, by the way, as far as what we offer for free, but it does come down to that free consultation. So often that when you haven't got credibility, a free consultation doesn't have much value. If you can promise something and they trust your brand or have heard of you, then that free consultation has merit. So up until then, it's something like the return on ad spend guarantee, or it's the thought of, we've tried a campaign lately that's offering $2,000 worth of design. So before they start, they're getting $2,000 worth of web design out of us. Now we're talking about for larger projects here, of course. But that carrot has merit. It's more about opening the door and the idea that, okay, look, we'll talk further. So we don't necessarily have to give away the $2,000 worth of design, but it's the idea that they hear that we're willing to show them what we're worth or how capable we are. We're not going to do that type of work unless we're confident in convincing that particular client that we're worthy of taking further. But it's important when you offer something for free that it doesn't come across as cheap. As well.
Yeah, it's an art.
It is an art, and particularly with the clients that we deal with, it's not the free thing that they're after. They want the quality work.
Yeah.
So, but the free thing might just be the carrot to go, oh well, come and see us. And it's like your call to me, Ryan. Something in those first 10 seconds said, I'll take this further, because normally it would be a no. It would be no, go away. I'm too busy. I'm focusing on client work and an overdue website or a campaign that needs to go live on Friday or whatever it might be. And so it's easy to say no and dismiss the call. But you said something in the first 10 seconds that went, oh, I'll just take this a little bit further. And it might have been your personality or the cheekiness or whatever it was, Ryan. But we're here.
Yeah.
So your value offer was received and accepted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it doesn't. We again going around in circles here a little bit, but we started talking just now about what's the free offer, but it's not necessarily free. It's the value that you're giving, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I see free as, so you have this dream outcome, like you said, they want to pay you because they want to achieve the outcome.
Yeah.
All free is minimizing the likelihood they won't achieve the outcome.
Initial risk.
Yeah. So, you're right. Like the giving away for free. Why are you giving it away for free if you're so good? And then there's a few things you said in there. One, conviction. So the warm lead. So the best salespeople I see are the ones that care about the client and believe in the product, because all they're trying to do is pass on their own conviction. And then in order to win against their objections and doubts and limitations, you need to care more about them than they do, so that you can push.
Yep.
And a close is, often very relationship heavy, or they're very direct in a way that's not confronting because they got EQ, but often they're very good at demonstrating clear intent and conviction in what they do. So what do you attest to being able to push, in a sense, because you're going for a warm lead and you're like, I'm getting them. How did you navigate that? Because, people pleasing normally, like, I don't want to push them, I don't ask questions, or I'm calling them 2 times now, you're a dickhead because you keep calling them. Well, how do you...
Well, I guess if you're still talking about the phone call, then it's always difficult because they don't know you. You're hoping that your personality comes across, or your passion to do something with them comes across. But then, if you get past the phone call and it's a meeting, face to face, well, then you're building on the relationship that you've started. So it's you made a point earlier. It's not just one touch point. It's many touch points, particularly in a B2B sale. so it's those many touch points. It's the proof that you can do what you want. It's the projects page and the case studies page on your website that convinces the client. It's the testimonials that you can provide, or even the actual physical referrals. And like, call this person and talk to them. They'll tell you how good we are. It's those sorts of all those touch points that add up over time. So it's not just one. It's never going to be one phone call, is it?
No, I used to have to do that. It was cold call. They wanted to win like an iPhone, and you sell them funeral insurance. So it was a bit of an art and then they give you your credit card, the date of birth, their first child, their whole address, and you didn't know them. Or another one where you just talk to people on the street. You've just got a fucking shirt and a fucking table that opens up, and then you say, "Commit to this for 2 years." It's
I don't know how you do that.
Volume. Get rejected a lot. There's a lot of limitations in sales. It's you can call someone off the fly and sell them something for 30 grand. I used to sell medical equipment that helped people with their mobility, and some of it, you could spend 60 grand and you door knock and they don't know who you are. The company's not that credible when you look it up. So it's all relationship and linking their values to the outcome. So believing in you and you understanding them and showing them a clear path forward.
Right.
What has been the biggest barrier for you, either as a business owner or as a salesperson, that had a big impact on the next level that you were able to go to?
Good question. Often it's there's two issues there. One is just simply building the business. So spending the 31 minutes on the cold calling or lead development or whatever it might be, and not getting our nose stuck in the stuff that we're here for. Like I love marketing. I love the digital world. I are wrapped when we launch a new website or a new ad campaign. We want it to be the best. We want it to work for the client. So at the core of it, like you were stating earlier, Ryan, at the core of it, I'm passionate about the product and service that we produce, which is usually expertise driven. But to turn that into a business, then we need those new leads. So that's always the problem point. The other part of that, you're saying, what stops us growing? It's often resource. We run as perfectionists, and we find it very hard to find the right design resource or the right developer resource. We're very picky on that front, and if anything, that holds us back from time to time. But it's probably a good thing as well, because it keeps our quality up. So when we have taken on larger projects and have resourced up for that project, often the holdback is finding quality resource to work with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's a limitation I'm finding. So I would say relinquishing control and delegation, because it's a reflection of you. So if I present a certain type of work and then they're like, "Oh, that's shit," it confronts my identity. And because I'm tied into the outcome of it. And I often see that as like a ceiling for a certain level of business owner, is the relinquishing of control and allowing the imperfections in the short term to free you up in the long term, where you actually deliver better because they can focus on it longer.
Actually, Ryan, that's something I've experienced lately. We've taken on a project manager, and he's developed in the role over the last 6 months. But because of his approach, I can relinquish control to him. Whereas, perhaps that perfectionist thing gets in the way of other people, because I'm going, well, if I pass it to that person, they're not going to do it as well as I would. But in my new project manager's case, I'm happy to give him something because I know he will do it to that level of perfection or quality.
Well, it's something I'm learning lately that I've fucked up a lot. Like I used to be really competitive. I'm still competitive, but I've learned that helping others succeed makes me even better because then I can just beat them when they're at their best instead of beat them down so I can win, which is an important switch. But the mistake I've been failing as a leader because I hired someone early on. I've never missed a payroll for however, I don't know how the fuck I managed that. But he would have these incredible ideas that I would shut down every time because I would think that would impact on me. So now, and also I'd change a lot. So then we weren't focused and developing. So in my head, I'd rationalize, he's not doing as good a job as me, and blah, blah, blah. And naturally, that's where I'd want to go. But then when I would encourage those ideas and stay out of the way and allow him just to do what I hired him to do, which is, to be more talented than me, and he's a lot more talented than me.
Right, yeah.
And then just the moment we picked a particular thing and I allowed him to just do what he thinks right, just has been an exponential benefit to the business. And I'm like, what a fucking idiot. Why have it taken me this long?
You've taken the reins off him and let him go.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Like, why did I hire you? To tell you what to do?
Yeah,
no, I hired you
exactly.
to free me up to do what I'm better at.
Yeah.
Which is hard, so.
But I think the hard bit is finding that talent in the first place, though, isn't it? I mean, if you could, perhaps I feel I'm very restrained when I know the talent isn't there. But when you do hire the right talent, geez, it's the first thing you want to do is let them go for it. Because you hope that you want them to do that job better than I can. What's the point in hiring a puppet or hiring a clone? You'd rather expand the resource or expand the ideas or expertise or whatever it might be.
Well, Alex, just to bring him in again, Alex Mosey talked about if you pay someone an A player 15% more to get them, their output's 5 times greater than the average. So you think about the ability to attract that talent, but it's a balance. It's a dance between the insecurity of them being a representation of you and then them objectively not being good. Like if I think about, like if I met you when you first started and I hired you, I might be like, oh, this guy's a fucking lemon. But then because of your values and who you are and your motivation to learn and your perfectionism and your consistency to hold yourself accountable, what you became is exceptional, So it's how do you navigate between my insecurity of them not being to a point where I'm happy or them objectively not being good. Have you ever had to make a tough call on someone being like, this isn't working? And did you get the heebie-jeebies?
I'm afraid we've just made it. A hell of a nice developer that we took on recently, but he just wasn't making the grade, and very quickly we had to move. Or I had to move him on. That means fire him, but you've got to do it respectfully. I mean, we hired him with all the best intent that he would do well at the job. We reference checked him. We set him initial projects, which seemed to be all positive, but he just didn't work out for us. He wasn't capable. He wasn't coming up to the quality we expected for the development work that he was focused on, and we let him go. So I just think you've got to be quick to make that call. My experience is that I'm often not quick to make that call. I've got quicker over the years, but so often we don't want to offend people, or we hope that it will work better, don't we? We hope it'll work out. But I think in business we know that you've got to make a decision, make it quick. If they don't come up to the expectation, then move them on. And it's another good reason to have clear. We're talking about metrics before. It's important to have those metrics in place so that you can quickly measure how effective someone is or isn't.
Tough question. And we're at. I keep looking at the thing because I've only got one contact in because I can't afford another one at the moment, which is an interesting way to be. Tough question. So we've done 40 minutes. What, as a leader, how do you think you failed, and what contribution did you bring to the failing of this person? Whether it's hiring or the sporting.
Really good question. To that particular example?
Yeah.
Well, that particular example was relatively short-lived. If my contribution to it probably wasn't assessing and analysing him well enough in the first place, because we don't want anyone to fail in a job. But I'd rather, in the recruitment process that we have, often the last meeting I have with the person is about the downside. I explain that I want them to succeed in the role, but then I really lay down the law about what our expectation is, and explain that if they don't meet that expectation, don't expect to have a job here. And it's a hard conversation, but I'm asking them to contribute to the decision as much as I'm delivering it. Like, they've got to know their own value or their own ability, and they should make a call on whether the job is right for them as well. But in answer to your question, my failure was not realising that he wasn't good enough or didn't have the right experience for that particular role. And I should have, because otherwise it puts us all into drama. He has to go find. I have to let him go. He has to, that emotional feeling of having to leave a job so early on, and certainly, from our side, it's having to recruit again and start afresh with training and so on. It's not good for anybody. And I really respect, an employee's contribution and their family and their role and so on. It's really hard work, letting someone go like that. But and so, in answer to your question, I should have found out more about his ability in the first place. It's not fair on any of us.
Yeah, it's
not a good business decision.
Well, it's not good, but it's horrible. I just it's good you said that, because I was just going to challenge you, because there's a guy I really admire in leadership. He wrote a book called Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. He's ex-Navy SEAL, and he just talks about there was a moment in the battlefield where there was someone that was killed through friendly fire, and then that meant that whoever was contributed to that was going to get axed. Essentially, they're going to get cut. And so he stood in front of everyone and said, "Hey, who's at fault for this?" And they had the general person that was going to decide on the outcome of this, and each individual in his Navy SEALs team would stand up and say, "It was me. I fucked up because of this. I fucked up because of that." But he's like, "No, you're all wrong. It was me. I didn't communicate. I didn't make sure that these people are there." And that responsibility and flowing it down to the organization, that's actually a core value of our company, is responsibility. Because my weak frame of mind is victimhood. Oh, poor me. Oh, fuck. So responsibility as a leader, and starting with that as a starting point of being like, how did I contribute to this unfailing? And then also objectively, what happened? So how do you, as a leader in an organization, how do you either feel worthy as a leader to give advice, or what's been your biggest lessons around being leadership?
As you were talking there, I was thinking about this project manager that I mentioned earlier, that is doing good things for us, and thinking for himself and so on, and perhaps that's it. It's actually not teaching the person the direct skills. I mean, of course you have to do that at some point, but it's actually encouraging him to learn it on his own. To be motivated to address the things that need doing in the business without me having to actually teach him, "Oh, you do it this way." It's more, well, what needs doing? What would make the day better? What would grow your skills? It's teaching him to teach himself, I guess, to some respect. And if you can get that with your employees, then they're going to grow far quicker than actually teaching them the individual tasks.
Yeah, understanding why they do what they do. I think, that's real art. Like if you have someone in your organization and you're always being the reason for the movement, let's say if there's a ship, you had to keep pushing and driving them to be able to do it just because you want to micromanage and keep being in control. And you think about any aspect, any characteristic of who you are that you admire. what led to you developing that, whether it's integrity, whether it's resilience, whether it's empathy, it's suffering, and to a degree. You know, you had to have uncomfortability or an ability to wait to develop patience. So each time your staff member's struggling, it's a balance between them not struggling so much they give up, but allowing them to struggle to develop the characteristic they need to be successful. So you're taking away a learning opportunity.
Yeah, and you're right, because they need to learn it. You know, we all need to learn that stuff for ourselves. You know, you can't just be told things. You can't be told how to operate. You need to learn how to operate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's horrible as well. Like, you always got to tell someone what to do. Like, then you've just got 1,000 jobs and no business.
Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, and you might think, oh, we didn't talk too much about marketing and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I think there's an important, most people's failings are either skill set or beliefs, I find. So there's some level of acquiring knowledge. But often I find it's their own, limitations.
Right.
Because, like, if you did what you know you should every day, what would your life look like? You know what I mean? Like, we know what to do pretty much, and there's some skill discrepancy. But, like, extrapolate, let's say from the age of 18, you started the business and you did exactly everything you need to do every day no matter what. Where would you be?
Good question. Very good question. Yeah. Oh, the business would be a lot bigger, and I'd be a lot more wealthier, perhaps. If I'd stuck to those lessons that I know now back then.
Yeah.
I guess you would have grown quicker.
Yeah.
Just simply because you're not wasting time on mistakes.
Yeah.
Or wasting time on the right area within your workplace, and back to the message that we've talked about earlier, the constant focus on business development, not just leaving it for every second or third month, but for every day. That's an important. If I knew that when I was 18, the business would be global.
Yeah. Or even if you did 100 calls every day and followed it up on every call and learned and recorded the call so you could listen and talk. Those are the two skills you need mainly in selling, is be able to listen and talk. So why not practice those every day? How do you talk better? How do you listen better? So that's why it's important to record your calls. So you make sure 100 cold calls every day and follow up. And then a product that you do what you should for the client, and you hire what you should, and let people go when you should. So then the problem isn't watching another YouTube video to know what you should do. It's what's stopping you from actually doing it. And also what's the right place to focus in terms of skills. Like, you need to understand, that it's better to do cold calls than it is to do this. But anyway, so what would be your inspiring message for your lessons through business and a business owner listening to this that would encourage them to do what they know they should? And we'll end on that.
Oh, jeez.
Easy question.
So it's a 30-second wrap-up for a conversation that should take 2 hours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good.
Yeah, good.
Look, I guess it's for me, it's like narrow the focus to build a brand. It's one of our business mantras. But so narrow the focus is so find what you're good at, work out what works for your marketing of your business or for your business development, and stick to it. Not drop it and turn to the next shiny object. So it's back to some of the stuff we've talked about earlier, was that focus and that consistency, just spending the time on those things that give you the most reward. So in the context of what we're talking about here, it's that allocating regular time to business development, whether that's the cold calls or the marketing campaign or whatever it might be, but do it consistently and measure it and work out what's working and tune that stuff, optimize it to get even a better result.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, I'm inspired. I got to keep doing my cold call. I'll do some straight up.
I think you should. It sounds like it's really working for you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I kept trying to learn ads or do this thing or work out how to make a website that converts. Because I was getting like 100,000 people like searching my name, which is fucking weird. And I wasn't really getting much clients from it. I'm like, well, what the hell am I doing with that? But then if I just focus on that one channel, that one avatar, keep doing this.
And that works for you. So
Yeah.
keep it up. Keep it up.
Thanks, mate. Well, you keep it up, and thanks for coming on.
All the best, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Boom. Done.